What's up, everybody? This is Jimmy with Trading Decoded. It is February 13th, 2024. Happy pre-Valentine's Day. 4:04 in the afternoon, market is closed. CPI came out today. Not so great. Apparently, higher for longer is really a thing, and the market reacted to it in pre-market and then crawled its way back up a bit, never crossing our call line scenario. Only to get near it and then tumble down from there. And then miraculously, like baby Jesus had his hand on it, pulled it back up, still closing the day pretty red as far as the market goes. But interesting day for sure. Lots of great opportunities today. And we're going to go over some of those. So without further ado, let's go ahead and launch said charts and take a look at what happened. Well, as you guys know, I do my charting at 8:30 in the morning. However, knowing CPI was coming out at 8:30 in the morning, I didn't even bother drawing my lines until about 8:40, 8:38, somewhere around there. That is why my pre-market lines are all the way down here and not all the way up here. Okay, all my target lines are up here based on previous trading sessions or pre-market or whatever. This was yesterday's low of day. Yesterday's high of day was 503.50 all the way up there. Well, we never even claimed close to any of that today, so it doesn't really matter. And in fact, we never got back above 495.91, which is where our call line scenario was. Okay. Now, Jimmy, where was the put scenario? Well, the first thing I needed to remind everybody of was not to fall victim to the bias that surely allows people to create when they see this. It's not that it can't go lower. I'm not saying that at all, but it also can go the opposite way very aggressively sometimes. And we've seen that happen before. So it's my job to remind people that pre-market isn't necessarily an indicator of what the entire day is going to be. With that said, and after knowing what happened throughout the day, it was a good precursor, that's for sure. Why did we come down today, or especially dump this hard at this time? Because the CPI numbers, all of them, came in hotter than expected, okay? Just means that the Fed rate cuts are probably not going to happen when or as often as the market had priced in they were gonna this year. Not really a surprise to me because I don't know who out there thinks that this economy is in really good shape. Now, I know Wall Street and Main Street are two completely different things, but at some point, the scary reality of what is happening economically in this country is going to rear its ugly head. But with that said, what was our put scenario? I said, guys, we'd like to see a pullback as close to 495.32 as we can. And we would love to see a breach of this uptrend line before we consider taking puts. Now, me, like an idiot, along with some of our other members, we jumped in on the opening candle. And that could become very uncomfortable for a minute there. And the only reason I stayed into this is because of this right here. You see this ADD? So ADD opened at minus 2,000 and continued to free fall all the way down to minus 2,500-ish. Okay? That is an insane amount of selling. That's a lot of stocks in the market going down. But ironically, Qs in their own little world over there was not doing that. Qs were trending up. I had to get to a point where I had to tell myself, well, if Qs make it through this resistance right here from pre-market with a candle close, I'm going to have to stop myself out of this trade. Fortunately, that never happened. Qs had a pullback to their trend line. That allowed me to get out of this trade close to where I got in. I think I made $10 a contract on this trade, only to see later that it made it to the target I was trying to go to, which was our first target low. But besides that, was uncomfortable. But for those of you who took this trade responsibly, got in at the close below the trend line, and you wrote it down to our first target, it was a much easier and more comfortable ride for you. So kudos to you for those of you who had the patience to wait. We found some support there, kind of broke the uptrend, but not enough to say, hey, just yeet into calls. Guys, my call line is all the way up here. Why, Jimmy? Well, because I want to see us clear a bunch of this selling that happened after the reports for me to feel comfortable taking calls. Okay. And then even then it's going to be, reliant on what the Qs are doing when we get to that point. All right. So we have some pretty tight levels of support down here. There were some folks who were trying to play a breach of this line to make it to the next line. Again, Tight range, but it is the 20 cents minimum that we like to look for. Some folks took the trade. I was one of them. And we just played it from line to line. Again, scalpy type move in that case. But, that first one, I made less than 1% on that trade on the first one. The second one was about a 13% win, which was nice. And then at that point, I was thinking, maybe I'll be done for the day. But I was, for the most part, until I saw a trade I could not skip. And a lot of people took this trade with me, which was fantastic. However, what are we looking for on the call side here? Well, a lot of looking at the Qs today, guys. So what was going on here at 10:20 in the morning? 10:20 in the morning on the Qs had us breaking above resistance here with a candle close. ADD at this time, if I'm not mistaken, had started to rotate to the upside. See this? So all day long, while ADD was dropping, I was telling everybody, guys, what we need to look for is not so much how negative ADD is, but when it stops moving down and starts to rotate to the upside. That is going to indicate that the people who move the market, which is not us, feels like the move to the downside is either done for the day or temporarily done. And they're going to deploy their capital back into the market because they feel the time is right. That's all ADD is telling us, okay? Look at this move to the downside, and then as soon as ADD stops moving down and starts to rotate up, that's the market or people buying back into the market. It's right around, so this happens at 10:25 on ADD. It happens a little bit sooner on Qs and SPYs, but the rotation already started to happen. And look at what we did on Qs and SPY. I mean, Qs were never trending down really since open, but ADD was telling us, hey, everything seems to be shifting in the opposite direction right now. Don't play puts is really what we're looking for. Now, to the call side, we were looking for a breach of resistance here. Qs had breached resistance, broke through, and ADD was starting to rotate to the upside. Everything we want to see for a potential move up, great. I didn't take this trade, okay? I wasn't going to take calls unless we got above my white line up here, my 495.91. Made that abundantly clear to everybody. However, I know some people were in calls, so I spent this entire trade trying to tell them where they should put their stop losses, where they should consider taking profits. So in this one, we got in here because we broke resistance and the Qs broke resistance and ADD was moving up. We got out at the first suggested target because this was resistance right here. Guys, we got a triple top here. If you're interested in taking profits, that's great. If you want to hold through that, simply slide your stop loss up. Okay. And once we created this new support here, this become our new stop loss. And then we were trying to hold to the next line. Okay. So once we got above this, we say, hey, we got a new support here, which is good if you're trying to hold calls, 494.56. If we close below that, take yourself out of the trade. Otherwise, we're aiming for 495.32. It's exactly what happened. It took a little while to get there, but it got there to the penny, came back down, and then bounced right off that same exact support again, where everybody was asking me, Jimmy, would you buy calls on support or would you buy a breach of this blue line up here? So guys, honestly, I would always feel better buying calls during an uptrend off support going up to the next resistance than I would buying a breakout. Okay, it's always more comfortable to do that. Now, with that said, we had people buy here on support and played it right back up to resistance. Awesome trade. Congrats to those of you who did it. Then we chopped around a bit, and here I am saying, guys, if we cross this line, I don't know. It's slowing down a lot. I don't know if I'm going to be excited to get into calls. Qs at this time were also getting very close to their resistance. So I had two criteria for this trade if I was going to take calls. I said, number one, SPY needs to be above 495.91. Number two, Qs needs to be above this line right here. It's still set. The alert that I set. Okay. It never closed above that line. Okay. It never closed above that line. So here we are right around 1145. Okay. Qs were coming back up to the line. They never got there. And I'm kind of glad they didn't because I'd have been obligated to put on the trade. And I didn't really feel great about the potential of doing that. Okay. We were also recognizing they were putting in lower highs on Qs, so that's another thing that we had to watch out for. We recognized that it was a wedge at that time, and we just needed to wait for the wedge to break high or break low. I reference the Qs all day long, guys, because the Qs are what is dragging SPY all over the place. Okay, ADD was very strong to the downside today. The market was very red for the majority of the day. So Qs were kind of dictating where we were going. So a lot of the things that we were doing were based solely on the Qs. Now, on our way down here, right before I went to lunch, we had already pulled back, and we had closed below this support here. I told everybody, guys, if we close below this support, SPY should potentially move down to 494.55 right here. So from this support here, the very next support down that we have is right there. So I said that at this time, but we did the candle close here. Okay, so some people got in early, but right before I left, I said I expect this thing to move down to 494.55. I came back from lunch and we had gotten down there. Lower highs, lower lows. Now I'm not here at this point. I'm out to lunch. And I come back from lunch right around 1:15, somewhere over here. And I read this in our chat channel from one of our temporary members. Now, Jet, if you're watching this, I love you. I'm not trying to call you out, but I am going to make an argument for why indicators suck. Okay? There are tons of folks out there, guys, who use indicators for the sole purpose of taking their trades. It's easier to believe something that isn't our own beliefs than it is to believe something that is technically based on technicals, per se. So I come back to him saying the bulls are back in town, 53 to 32 buy to selling pressure, showing signs of oversold on my RSI indicator. Squeeze indicator is showing a start of an uptrend, but we'll have to see if we break 495.10 resistance. Well, 495.10 was right here. Okay, we broke it. He typed that. Guys, let me heed a little bit of advice to you. Know where support and resistance is. Okay, indicators are lagging, number one, and number two, we just came off a pretty nasty news in the morning. Okay, not that this thing can't go up. I'm not saying that at all, but to get in at 495.18 or 19, knowing that just a few cents above that is a proven resistance line, pre-market low that we drew. If you're not prepared to take whatever profit exists at that point, then don't take the trade. Okay, I know for me that a minimum of 20 cents, minimum move, is what I feel comfortable taking profits at. Okay, if I get in and I'm not supposed to take the trade and I get to where I'm supposed to get out of a trade, and I'll look at my P&L and it's not a number that I usually am used to seeing, I tend to want to hold on to that trade until it's worth what I'm used to seeing, right? So that's me wanting more out of the trade while ignoring what the chart is telling me it's not willing to give me. I live and die by support and resistance. So if I'm buying this close to a resistance, then I better accept whatever the chart is willing to pay me when we get to that line. Because if I choose to hold through that, wanting more, what happens oftentimes? Well, you got to see what happens. So the reason this is here on this chart is to serve a purpose for people to know that indicators are never a sole reason, should never be the sole reason for taking a trade. Now, if you yourself see a reason to be buying calls here that has nothing to do with indicators and you want to reference your indicators to back up your feeling, fine. But I'm here to tell you that if you can understand price action or accept the fact that support and resistance is a real thing, you could have prevented yourself from taking this trade simply because there wasn't enough room to the upside to even justify doing it in the first place. All right, so Jet, I don't know if you took that call. I couldn't get a hold of you after you posted that. So I don't know if you hurt yourself or what, but I hope you didn't. If you did, I hope you got out. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow morning in the room. But again, I didn't come back till about 1:15. So I came back right around here. No trades for me at this point. ADD had started to make its rotation back to the downside. Qs were making a move pretty gnarly like to the downside. And everything was rotating back down again. So as we're moving down, we get to this point here. And I said, guys, SPY's looking like it's about to make a new low a day. It broke through its last support that we had on the day, which was right here at 493. What was it? 493.34. We got a candle close below that, okay, which tells me we're going to make it down to the next support. Again, nothing's guaranteed, guys. It's just the way I look at the market. If we're trending down and we close below support, my expected move is down to the next support. If we know where these levels are, then it makes it really easy to know when you should be getting in and when you should be getting out. Okay? So at this point, we had everything in our favor for the move to go down. So we closed below this line. I took my entry here. And again, it's a late day trade for me. Went over to Qs. Okay, so Qs had just closed below support. SPY closed below support. And Qs at 203 right here had a decent way to go before they were going to run into their next support. So I said to everybody, guys, I'm expecting Qs to make it down to 426.99, 427. When they get there, I'm going to take my profits on this trade. What time did they get there? 207. What time did we get out of our trade? 208, 207, 208 area. Okay. The problem is, I also have a 5-cent rule. If I get within 5 cents of my support lines or resistance lines while I'm in a trade, I take myself out. It moved lower, and that's okay. I just wasn't prepared to continue to stay in the trade. So that there, not only myself, but quite a few people, that was an 80% trade. I didn't quite get 80% out of it, but we had people in the community did. So good job for you, V, you know who I'm talking to, for making that move. And then what was going on here? We had broke through support. We were talking about all day long how it'd be better to buy puts in resistance or at resistance during a downtrend. Okay, so obviously we were still trending down and we got a pullback here to 219. Well, Jimmy, that's not at resistance. And you're absolutely right. But guess what? What was at resistance at 219? Qs were right there. Qs broke down, got through support, pull back to resistance. I say to everybody, if you're interested in buying puts, this resistance line would be the place to do it. And we hope that we stay below this trend line and below that orange line, right? Otherwise, we're hoping for Qs to break the support that they had made prior to that entry. And I recommend everybody at this time, if you're trying to be conservative, if the Qs get back down to that support, you might want to consider taking profits. Otherwise, make sure you stop out if we get above this red trend line and at the very latest above 426.99. That's it. So it's up to you to choose what you want to do. Well, this circle here is placed at the exact candle that SPY or Qs hit that support level. Even if you held on to that and waited for them to break the trend line, you still got out with a minimal scrape. In fact, we had somebody try to hold longer. They ended up making 16% on the trade even after this thing pulled back. Okay. We have a nice pullback up. And again, at this point, I was getting ready to go pick up my kids from the bus stop. And some gentleman had bought calls during this, not my recommendation. And at 2:45, while I was getting ready to leave, because I leave at 2:45 and come back at 3 o'clock. He had asked me, Jimmy, where do you think this thing's going to close? And I said, man, you can't put me on the spot like that. I said, but it sounds like somebody's stuck in calls and wants to know if they should hold them, because he was wanting for 494. And I said, I don't know if we're going to go to 494, but my guess is somewhere between 493.15 and 493.49. I go and I come back at 3 o'clock and I see that we're way down here. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know if that's going to happen. We made it down. And then we started to get some good signs of buying. Now, why is this here? This is here not because I took this trade. This is here because, well, several reasons. Number one, we cleared a resistance here and ADD was starting to push up and Qs had just broken a resistance level to the upside as well at 334. Okay, right here. So Qs made a reversal. They closed above this resistance right here. Told everybody, if you're in this trade, because we closed above resistance, we need to hold that as support. That should be your stop. Hold on to the trade. Don't hold through the 350 candle. So some people got out when the Qs got up to their resistance. And as you could see, it tried to hold resistance. 350 came, we pulled back, didn't even make it down to the next support, and it shot up. And I think I helped a lot of people stay into that trade for a much, much longer period of time than they otherwise would have. So I feel good about that. And congratulations to those of you who held that trade also and took it for all the right reasons. Not my forte, but man, it paid. Now, for Roger, you were asking me that. I'm glad to admit that I was wrong. I didn't think it was going to get even. I thought it was going to have a hard time even getting back to this area here. But man, it shot right through it and closed closer to your 494. Don't know if you stayed in it, my friend. I hope you did. I hope you got out with very minimal damage, or maybe even positive. But you're going to let me know tomorrow. Okay, guys, with that, we're going to wrap it up. I hope you found some useful information in this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. If you'd like to join our Discord community, well, there's a link down below. We'd love to have you. And new people coming in every day. They seem to be enjoying it. If you don't enjoy it, thanks for stopping by. I hope you learned something for the 7 days that you're there. If you do enjoy it, become a paying member. There's a lot of perks and benefits to doing so, okay? Lastly, check out our website at www.trading-decoded.com. And yeah, hope you all had a fantastic day. Till tomorrow, I love you guys. See ya!